Buckeyes are back in the shoe on Saturday afternoon to wrap up the spring session. We got Steve Hellwagon on the line from 247 Sports Bucknuts to help us get us set for what we might expect to see on Saturday afternoon. Of course, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, best discussion, debate, and analysis. All right, Steve, how are you doing this fine morning?
I'm doing good, other than the fact that we've got kind of a monsoon falling out here right now. But the weather tomorrow here in Columbus, it doesn't really call for any rain, so people going to the game should be good. The game starts at 12 o'clock at Ohio Stadium, and it's also on Big Ten Network tomorrow for anybody who can't make it. And they've already sold about 65,000 tickets, and it's set up for about 76,000 people. Some of the seating is offline tomorrow because they are rehabbing some of the concrete in some of the sections. With a 100-year-old stadium, you got to upkeep it every year, and that's and to do that, you do it in the off season, and they'll be missing a little bit of their seating there tomorrow, but should be a good day for Coach Ryan Day's first spring game at Ohio State.
Don't think I need to ask you, Steve, what player is going to have the most eyes on him from start to finish, and people are hoping that he gets to sling the football around the field quite a bit, and that's, of course, Justin Fields.
Yeah, no question about it. Fields transferred in from Georgia, one of the top quarterback prospects in the country in the 2018 class, and got an immediate waiver to be able to participate at Ohio State. So with Dwayne Haskins leaving, going to the NFL, which the draft is coming up this week, and he's projected as a first-round pick, the Buckeyes need a new quarterback, obviously, and he will fit that bill, it appears. We were at a scrimmage last Friday where he took about 90% of the reps with the first team, so it was pretty obvious that he is Ryan Day's choice to take over, excuse me, as the starting quarterback. Matthew Baldwin, a redshirt freshman, is backing him up. And what really sets Fields apart, he is an outstanding runner, very quick, very explosive as a runner, but he can also make a multitude of throws. So I think fans are going to be excited to see what Fields has to bring. He is going to be a sophomore this upcoming season, so potentially he could be the starting quarterback at Ohio State for the 2019 and 2020 seasons if everything works out, and at the least. And I think he's going to be a guy that people are excited to see in action. And we'll probably get a little better feel. The game is going to be what they call a thud, which is basically almost touch football, but with pads on. So there'll be a little bit of hitting and some blocking, but not a lot of tackling. They don't want to tackle people to the ground and risk knee and ankle and leg injuries. They've had a few of those guys banged up over the course of the spring, and guys that are coming off injuries, and they want to minimize that risk the best way that they can. And so they just figure full-on tackling for this exhibition in April makes no sense, but it'll still look a little bit like football out there, and there'll be pass blocking and everything else, and the quarterbacks will be throwing to wide receivers, and so it'll be an interesting display nonetheless.
And that's where a few situations have to be taken into context by the fans. There's certain one-on-one matchups, obviously, in open space where a linebacker or a defensive back would have to make a tackle where we just can't get a gauge on that, but the coaches do during these 15 sessions leading up to it, and the escapability of the quarterbacks and so forth when a fingernail brings them down. I want to ask you before we get to some other skill position players on offense, of course, we'll get a look at Matthew Baldwin as well, and that shouldn't be discounted because Ohio State certainly has the personnel that if Justin Fields, God forbid, is lost for the season or lost for a stretch of games, that the not all is lost, because certainly the Buckeyes could still advance to a Big Ten championship if they get solid quarterback play from a Matthew Baldwin.
Yeah, no question about it. Baldwin is a kid from Lake Travis, Texas, just outside Austin. And he was a guy that Ryan Day found when he was recruiting Garrett Wilson, the outstanding wide receiver who will be a freshman, and he'll be in action on Saturday. He enrolled early. So you'll be able to see him, which is kind of a side plot here. You'll have several early enrolling freshmen who will be on the field. Zach Harrison, the defensive end, who everybody was so excited when he signed with the Buckeyes over Michigan and Penn State. He enrolled early, and he'll be out there wearing number 33. As I mentioned, Garrett Wilson, the outstanding wide receiver, he'll be wearing number 5. You've got Noah Potter, an outstanding offensive lineman. He's a defensive lineman. So you've got probably 5 or 6 early enrolling freshmen. Marcus Crowley is another one at running back who's in this mix. So that's kind of an interesting subplot to this game. But back on Baldwin, they kind of stumbled into him. He was only a one-year starter at the high school level, led his team to a state championship game in Texas, but also suffered a knee injury in that state championship game, which really limited what he could do during the 2018 season at Ohio State. He was going to redshirt pretty much anyway, and he was not full go until right at the beginning of the season. And Ryan Day said they did not want to put him with the scout team at that point because they didn't want Nick Bosa and those type guys bumping into him down on the scout team field, scout team defense against the number one, scout team offense against the number 1 defense. They didn't want to put him in harm's way because he was just healing his knee injury. So he kind of sat behind Tate Martell, who was the backup, and Dwayne Haskins last year, and did mental reps. And then for bull practice, he got in there a little bit. And they knew the handwriting was on the wall that they were going to probably need him in 2019 one way or the other. And he's been very impressive. Coach Day said that both Fields and Baldwin have had about the same completion percentage. He didn't divulge that. You hope it's somewhere around 70. I'm being facetious, of course, but typically if you're in the 60s, mid-60s is a good number, obviously, for a major college player. And if you push 70, it's phenomenal. But at any rate, Baldwin has been impressive, I guess, during spring practice. The limited bit that we saw last week, he looked very good. I think he just, again, is shaking the rust off because 2018 was mostly a year away from football for him, of active football, because he was rehabbing and then didn't get a lot of live reps in the fall until they got toward the end of the season with the bowl practice. So he's just starting to get back into things. He's going to be, it appears, almost a perfect backup quarterback for what they need at Ohio State, a guy who's there. I mean, Fields could be in harm's way running the football and could get injured. We saw that with J.T. Barrett a couple of times when he was a freshman and when he was a senior. He got injured against Michigan in both those games. And the backup had to come in, Cardale Jones, when he was a freshman. And then it was Dwayne Haskins when Barrett was a senior, had to come in and finish out at least that game. And Jones had to finish out the season. So you got to be at the ready in this offense. And they have promised that Fields is going to be getting back probably more to what Braxton Miller and J.T. Barrett were doing with the zone read offense that they like to run. So I think it's interesting to see, again, what the offense will look like. And Baldwin, to me, seems like he's in perfect position to be the backup.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Buckeyes with Steve Hellwagon, 247 Sports Bucknuts, Big Ten senior writer, with the spring game coming up, and of course all those spring sessions in the books. So when we scan the playmakers on the field on offense, obviously a lot of big ones are gone, but a lot of big ones remain. Is there anyone who intrigues you in regards to getting to see them match up against some of the defensive backs, or see them get the ball in space and see what they can do?
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting concept. I think what you'll have is a lot of the older guys, the seniors at wide receiver, with Benjamin Victor, Austin Mack, KJ Hill, probably not going to play a whole lot. They're already projected as starters for the upcoming season, and I think you'll probably see them play a few series, and then they'll go from there. But they go about 8 or 9 deep at wide receiver, so they got some other guys you want to see. Jalen Harris is a junior. It's time for him to step up and be in that 2 deep and really be counted on. I think he came in with such a high ceiling, and I think that his time is now. Garrett Wilson, we touched on him earlier. They've got a lightly regarded guy, a third-year junior by the name of Elijah Gardner out of Texas, Good frame, 6'3", 205 pounds. The day we were at the scrimmage, he made a ton of plays. And the same is true of a walk-on they have by the name of Garyn, Garyn, Garyn Prater. He played at Cincinnati, Wyoming High School. He's a junior, 6'4", 200 pounds as well. Those are two guys with big frames that can run and make plays that are stuck behind so many other guys. And C.J. Saunders, a fifth-year senior walk-on, has gotten in some games the last couple of years and made a few plays here and there. He's been pretty solid. So I think Chris Olave, haven't even mentioned him, the true freshman from a year ago, now a sophomore, and he may be a guy that breaks loose in this glorified scrimmage tomorrow. But again, as I said, 8 or 9 deep at wide receiver. J.K. Dobbins at running back, I would not expect to see him play a whole lot. I think Master Teague and Marcus Crowley, the guy I referenced earlier, those two guys are going to be heavily involved at running back, I would think, in this game. And the spring game has never been a big thing for the running game per se, but I think that those guys will get some work. Demario McCall, who's also kind of in that group, has not practiced this spring because of some recurring injuries, thigh or calf injury with him. So he's been kind of in and out of the lineup really his entire career. But again, another setback for him. So, then you have the tight end position and Luke Farrell, Rashad Berry. Those are names that people know all about. And Jeremy Ruckert is a guy who is kind of playing a flex wide receiver / tight end and can really stretch defenses. He's got tremendous athletic ability. So you can go in any number of directions with your personnel groupings, depending on how you want to attack a defense. They've got every make and model, it seems, of playmaker right now on this roster. When I just ticked off 15 names, I think, between the wide receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs that they are excited about. And you've got Fields kind of as the guy calling all the shots, and Baldwin will be on his side as well in this game, spreading the ball around to all these playmakers, and should be a fun day to see who can get the ball into the end zone, who can spark a big play. I mean, when you lose Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin, Johnny Dixon, who were all big play guys, plus Mike Weber, who was really by the end of the year, he kind of supplanted Dobbins in some regards as the lead running back. They kind of went back and forth on that the entire season. I think that there's room there for some new names and some new guys to step up.
Talking Ohio State football, best way I can think possible. We've got Steve Hellwagon on the line, 247 Sports, Bucknuts. Please join him and the rest of the staff right there. The spring game, scarlet and gray on Saturday. So how much can we take away from this effort, either offensively or defensively? Obviously, the young guys are looking to make a last statement towards some playing time in August. And as you mentioned, the veterans will get a couple reps and then out the door for many of them. On defense, for a defense that well underachieved last year, I think poor tackling, missed tackling, and I think missed assignments. Well, we will have no idea if the tackling portion of it's been upgraded, but in regards to missed assignments against vanilla offenses, maybe we can gather something from there.
Yeah, I think that obviously there was an overhaul of the defensive coaching staff. He brought in Jeff Hafley, Greg Madison to co-coordinate the defense, Al Washington to coach wide receivers, Matt Barnes to help with the secondary. They kept Larry Johnson as the defensive line coach. And the mission was to get rid of all those big hits that they gave up. They probably gave up 5 or 6 plays well in excess of 50 yards. And I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but it was really anybody who followed Ohio State last year knows that the next big play seemed like it was always right around the corner, and not in a good way, obviously, for that defense. So I think what we'll see tomorrow is an attacking defense that is going to use the front four to get after the opposing quarterback. I'm sure that if they get near the quarterback or touch the quarterback, they'll blow the play dead. But then from there, the back seven has got to do a better job making plays in space, covering all these other things. And those are things that we can glean somewhat from this game tomorrow, because if the quarterbacks are just throwing against air or hitting short plays and they're turning into big plays because nobody even gets a hand on the receiver, then, obviously you've still got problems. So I think that is one where people are going to be watching very closely to see if small problems develop into big problems over the course of this game. So I think that, again, I wouldn't worry too much about the offense. I think that, obviously you want to see how sharp Fields is. But for defensively, this has been a huge spring for them to get back to playing consistent, strong football. And I think that's what the coaches are looking for when they get them out on the field tomorrow.
All right, Steve, we hope you have a good time. Hope the weather holds, and hope that the Buckeyes look solid on both sides of the ball. And most importantly, no real injuries as we head toward August.
Yeah, no question about it. Need to get through Saturday injury free, and then really a big off season program for the team, and get back for preseason practice in August. And the season will be here before you know it. We had some basketball that kind of kept us occupied here in Columbus until about mid-March, and now it's already April the 12th. And so the season, as we say, 4 months away, 4.5 months away, and we'll be here before you know it.
And then hope to get you back in next week to get your kind of complete wrap up on the spring, and who stood out to you. Of course, we'll get back together soon. Steve, we always appreciate the time.
All right. Take care, Mark.